Okay, welcome back. In the last video we defined our PTEOs, kind of talked about why we're using them. And this video we're going to show how in Excel we transfer those PTEOs that we're defining into a user-friendly experience that enhances continuity and just helps overall. So how do we do that without using something like VBA? So this is how we do it. We're going to come back into our status of funds and we're going to copy these PTEO. Control Shift down arrow, Control C, move over to the PTEO description table, and I want to copy values. I do not want to copy formulas into here. I want these to be static. Come back into the deemed status of funds, Control Shift down arrow, Control C, and then find the bottom of my range, hit Control down arrow, and then find the first available one, paste values right here. So now it's going to say, hey, you're inserting a row or two in the table. No problem whatsoever. That's what I want. I want a dynamically expanding range. So back up onto A1, I'm going to hit Control Shift down arrow. Now I've got my whole range. And in the Data tab, there's a function that's built in for us called Remove Duplicates, because we only want to define our PTEO one time. So I'm going to select that, unselect all because it can look at multiple columns. I just want to look at the PTEO and hit OK. So now that what that's done for me is it eliminate 182 things that I don't have to define twice because they're the same. So 2,229 remaining. Now you look at that number, that's both BQ and DEEMS together, and depending on the wing that you're at, if you do a lot of extra things for something like CivPay, or you put a lot of custom ESP codes in, those will expand your address directory as well. So I've seen 1,200, I've seen 900, I've seen a couple thousand. It just really depends. In a lot of the cases, you'll be able to knock a lot of the defining out in quick steps like CivPay, for example. So now we've got all of our PTEOs between both systems, and we can begin the process of defining them. Now, by selecting these drop-down boxes, looking at our line of accounting, which is really what you want to do. You want to know what's going on in your data, and this is a great way to do it. Now, how do we, once we do that, we have this whole table that's kind of not connected right now to anything else. So how do we connect what we're doing here, put it into our raw data so that we can create reports off of it? And this is how we do it. So just like before, I'm going to copy these remaining ones. I'm going to do the BQ soft. I'm going to copy these remaining columns: funds control, commodity, resource center, BOC breakout, sub commodity, and then this last one we'll talk about later. So let me come in here, and it looks like I already had it in there. So I will delete these just to show you how we do this. Come back in here and copy them again, and paste special and transpose. There we go. My table expands dynamically, which is what I want to see. Now we have to choose some formulas that are going to help us transfer between this description table to the raw data and have it automated, and that's what these formulas will do here. Now, if you've never seen ifs and VLOOKUPs and nested ifs and all that good stuff, it might be a little scary. Do not worry about it at all. What this is doing is this. Now when we look at a formula, we kind of go to the innermost of the formula because that's what evaluates first. And we have to talk about a few things. One, just like we have now, we've got all our PTEOs in there, but we haven't selected any of those drop-down boxes. So if that happens, what the VLOOKUP will return is a 0, okay, because we haven't defined anything. So if in the case that we haven't defined the PTEO yet, we want to give ourselves a message, and that message is define new PTEO. If it doesn't result in a 0, then it's going to jump to this VLOOKUP. It's going to say go look it up. Well, now it could return an error if we haven't actually put our PTEO in the PTEO description table. Remember, that's the engine that kind of runs all this, is that description table. It allows you to define it through drop downs and stuff like that. It allows you to define how you report. So If we haven't defined it yet, we get ourselves a nice message that says go ahead and define it. And if it doesn't exist in the description table, then it says go define it as well. And then if it does exist and we have defined it, then it gives us what we've defined it as. So I'm going to hit enter. And as expected, what we see is define new PTEO. And I'll hit this filter, and that's all we see, because in this table we haven't defined anything yet. Not one of them have been defined. Now if I were to just arbitrarily select these, and let me go ahead and select one here, and then copy that value down into everything else, now I have defined several, right? So if I were to come into my BQ or DeemSoft, one of the two, let me go ahead and find one that, well, I'll define a few more to make sure that I've got some in my BQSoft. There we go. So now, as soon as I end up defining those drop-down boxes, it's going to return that value for me. And the ones that I haven't defined, it's going to continue to say define new PTEO. Now what's super nice about this is once we've defined it in our reporting, this is how it's going to look. It's going to roll up all of our BAC 01 so that we can start to look at total authority. Make sure that we're balanced to our funding document. It's going to automate all of that for us. Now how do we expand this? Well, VLOOKUPs work from the left to the right. So description table, this is the first column, second column, third column, fourth, fifth, and sixth. So this VLOOKUP is no different from one column to the next. Let me copy this. Okay, all we do is paste, and we're going to change the column index from 2 to 3. Right? We're going to come into the Resource Center and paste that again and change that from 2 to 4, because we're wanting to look up now the Resource Center that we've selected the drop-down box for. And as you can imagine, this is all it is. The last one was 4, so now we want the 5th column in the PTEO description table. And this one is the 6th column. And finally the 7th column. Now there's not a 7th column here. That formula is this one right here. So this in the dashboard is how we're going to key you in that, hey, you need to go ahead and define new PTEOs. So in each of these we're going to give this formula in here that says, hey, if the left of funds control over here says underscore DEF, then hit yes, and if not, then say no. If it says yes, that means we haven't selected a drop down, right? So in these cases we don't need to define the PTEO. In these cases we do. So we had to choose one, and the funds control was the first one that we look at, so that's the one we choose. So now as we go through our status of funds for DEEMS and BQ, what we're going to see is these populate as we continue to work through our PTEO description table. Let me go ahead and duplicate this effort for the DEEMS status of funds, and you can kind of see this process work again. And I'm going to paste special transpose, and my table will expand dynamically for me. And the formula should be the same. Now take a look at this. I'm looking at PTEO and PTEO, right? Two separate data tabs with two separate sets of data, my DEEMS and BQSoft, but I've labeled them the same. So in each case, my description table is referring back to my PTEO description table, and the lookup value is the PTEO itself. So in these cases, it's actually the same formula. So I'll copy this again, but in my DEEMS this time, paste it. I do want the second column. This is the second one. So again, first column, second column, I want it to return the second. But then I'm going to go ahead into my commodity, and my commodity is the third column, in the description table. So that is what I'm going to select as number 3. The 4th column here, and so on. Now I'll complete this. Know that if you were to use the looks like I didn't get that one. If you were to use the template off of the SharePoint, you'll not have to do this. It'll be set up for you. You'll just need to ensure that your data is linked, and then you define your PTEOs. That'll basically be all the steps that you need to accomplish to get this up and working for yourselves, so where you'll download data, refresh the entire tool, and then your reports will start spitting out meaningful information. This video series is here, one, for those of you who want to learn a little bit more, and two, the idea is if you're the old parachute in from nowhere and you're a new budget officer, although you've never done budget in your life, we're going to try to get you to the point where you've got meaningful information as quickly as possible, and it'll improve your learning curve as well. So we go through these steps to hopefully show you how to go from nothing to something in a very short amount of time. And again, you can see that in that description table I have a lot of these, but I did define one already showing that. So that's another way for you to come in. That define new PTEO with the underscore, that will come to the top every time. Alright, the next thing I'm going to do, now that I have these two, and the last thing in this video series, is I'm going to give myself that identifier. I'm going to identify when I have a new PTEO. And I'm going to insert 2 pivot tables. Pretty straightforward. So the first pivot tables we've seen, but what I want to do is I want to indicate all my yeses. That's all I want to do. So insert pivot table, existing location, and we saved a special spot right here for BQ. Insert that pivot table, and I'm going to select this very bottom one here, and it says yes, no. You see how it says yes, no? And then my PTEO, and it gives me this huge list of PTEOs, and I'm just going to filter this down to the ones that say yes. Now when you define all your PTEOs, you see how that changed? When you define all of your PTEOs, they're just going to be a few, maybe a few each day, maybe none. If it comes back and there's nothing to define, then you don't have anything to define. You just want to make sure that that filter is set so that it says yes, and so that you'll know when you need to define new PTEOs. Same thing in the DEEMS. Insert pivot table, existing worksheet. We're going to put this just to the right. And there is a reason for doing this. The first tool that we had, we were training to copy and paste from the raw data, which you still can. It's completely viable. It's no problem. But lesson learned, some people were copying and pasting the formulas, and so that caused some errors. So this, in essence, is going to allow them to copy and paste these values without risking copying and pasting the formulas themselves. You'll still see that you need to define new PTEOs either way. So here, and so see that, no, you don't need to define this one because we already did it. I just want to see the yeses. Okay, you can come up here and say define BQ soft PTEO, and then come over here and define DEEMS soft PTEO. Copy and paste these into your PTEO description tab. In this case, we know we just haven't done any of them, so you'll want to make sure you go through and give it your best effort. And then when you're updating every day for this tool, then it'll update and show you if new lines of accounting or new PTEOs have come into your raw data for your SOF in DEEMS or BQ. And that will also take care of your STH for DEEMS and BQ as well. Alright, in the next video we'll start to expand and build out some pivots for the SOFs. See you then.